This is another big week for earnings. In fact, it's bigger this week, especially in the tech sector. All the big names from Microsoft to Google, as well as companies like Snap, Roku, Intel, they're all set to report. Our next guest thinks that if either Microsoft or Google meets expectations or miss, their stocks are going to be in trouble, similar to what we saw happen to Netflix and Tesla. Let's bring in Tastytrade CEO Scott Sheridan to discuss. So, Scott, can they not win no matter what? Or do you think there is a scenario where these guys see some upside?
I think they've won. I think everybody's won if you've been long the market. So I think now the time, has come for them to tell their story. And as we saw, obviously, with Tesla and with Netflix, the market didn't like what they saw. But from insane numbers, if you want to, talk about the moves that these stocks have had. So my feeling is that the market is never as good as it looks or is never as bad as it looks. And, right now, I think the path of least resistance clearly for the overall market is the upside. I mean, looking at S&Ps today, again, up, 20. Now they've sold off a little bit, up 15. Market appears to want to drift higher. Unfortunately, for anybody who is long, a down move can come very, very quickly and happen quickly. So even though we've been up, it seems like for the entire year, that can change very quickly. So for the stocks coming out, and this is, basically the Super Bowl of earnings when you look at the companies that are coming out for this week, that these companies, my fear for them is if they don't absolutely crush it, the path of least resistance now is going to be lower just because of the run-up that we've had.
And so in the last earnings season, it seemed like all of these companies could skate by with a mention of artificial intelligence. Is there a magic word or a magic phrase this earnings season, Scott, from your perspective?
Well, AI is a good one. We had blockchain a couple of years ago. It didn't matter what your company did. If you put blockchain into any earnings report, your stocks seemed to have a favorable push. So
yeah, Long Island was an iced tea company.
Long Island was an iced tea company, and then I think Overstock and Kodak. It really didn't make a difference. So now what's in favor is AI. We'll see. You have Meta coming out with Threads. Is that going to be the Twitter killer? So there's a lot coming out. And I don't want to come off suggesting that I don't want this to appear to think that I think we're going into a crash scenario. I don't think that at all. I just think that, where we are right now at 4,600-ish on the S&Ps, it's funny. We're 200 points away from all-time highs, but it doesn't feel like that. When you're listening, people are like, this is a choppy market. My perception, this is not a choppy market. We've just been drifting higher and higher. So are we going to maintain, or is there going to be some sort of, a 5-10% pullback?
So what do you think, Scott? Or do you think we're going to see that pullback?
I think we are going to have a pullback. I do. I think there's too much complacency. It's interesting. You got the Fed coming out, with their two-day meeting. Chances are they're going to increase a quarter. So what's happening with inflation, though? Inflation numbers seem to be coming down. Chance of recession or a severe recession seems to be coming down significantly. So all of these things are factoring in. And when the news starts to get to be really good, which the news does look good, that's the time for me as a contrarian. And I think, most former floor traders are contrarians. I put myself in, that category. I would look at this as an opportunity to lighten up on some longs and perhaps look to get a little bit on the short side.
Scott, when we think about any kind of margin resetting that you believe might be necessary for some of the tech companies that are set to report this week, what type of margin profile for even the largest cloud-based companies or the cloud companies that are set to report should we have in mind going into these reports?
A margin profile.
Just so you could be. Yeah, certainly. So for the last couple quarters, we've been watching as growth has started to kind of stall off because corporate spending has been so largely restructured. The margin profile for these cloud companies has shrunk along with that. And so is there a resetting of that you believe is set to come?
I don't. I think that's market forces, but we'll see. It is. I am overall extremely bullish on technology. I think AI is going to be an absolute game changer. Unfortunately, I think we are living in a time when fear is selling, and it doesn't make a difference whether you're talking about politics or you're talking about the stock market. And in particular with AI, I think that there's a lot of people out there who are hawking fear with this. To me, it's just progress, and we need to handle it correctly. Not sure what that means, what type of restrictions. Self-policing, I don't know if that will work. Obviously, there will be some bad actors that try to leverage AI, in their favor. But for me, it's going to be a net positive over the next, 5, 10, 15 years.
Scott, do you have a favorite tech trade going into earnings?
I would take advantage of selling volatility going into earnings. That would be my trade.
All right, Scott Sheridan, thanks so much. Good to see you, Tastytrade CEO. We got
My
much
pleasure.
more.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.